All right. Everybody should have the screen. I still see everybody on the right-hand side of my view thing here.
Yep.
All right. So the actions, which are these right here, this bunch of stuff right here are actions. And I color code mine just to make it easy. And I'm going to start at the beginning so that you don't feel like, you know. Also, I have free actions on my website. You can go to the tips and tricks page on my website, which is linked right off the home page. And you'll find an arrow there that'll take you to the page where you can download your own actions, which are about half of the ones that I have. Some of mine are specific to my computer, and so those wouldn't work on your computer, but you can download ones that are good for every program. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this actions palette, and now you see it's gone. I keep all my tools on the right-hand side of my screen so that they're all close together, and I'm not having to go back and forth left to right. My tool options are up here right above. So you find the actions palette here under window. So if you click on window and you come down, there's actions, Alt F9 if you want to do it with keys. And there it is again. Now, what I'm going to do is right now the actions are shown in what's called, here, matter of fact, let me just show you, button mode. So all I have to do right now is come over here to a picture, and let me create a layer, Control J, just so I'm not going to screw up my picture. And I can hit any of these, like a black point, 10% black point, and you'll see the picture get darker, right? If I want to go white point, now it's going to get more contrasty on the light side. And so all I have to do is click on these actions here, and I'm going to delete that layer. All I have to do is click on these actions in order to run whatever the action is. So in order to create actions, you cannot be in button mode. So you have to come up here to the box on the top right part of the actions palette, click on it, and unclick the button mode button. And then you'll see the actions look like this. And it's showing all the different steps. And so if I go here to that 10-point black point change, you'll see that it uses levels to create that action. Or if I come down here to the 6% fill shadow, it shows you that I'm using the shadows and highlights. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of mine right now. Again, I'm going to come down. I'm going to clear all actions. And they don't really delete, they just take them off the screen. And now we're going to create new actions. The actions are actually saved as a file. And so that file is on your, like I keep mine just on the C drive. So I always know where it's at instead of having to let Photoshop store it in the directories in Photoshop. So the first thing I'm going to do is come down here to the bottom, and you see that there's a folder. And I'm going to click on the folder, and this box pops up that says new set. And that's a new set of actions. So I'm just going to call this class actions. And I'm going to hit OK. And you'll see up here at the top of the menu, it's created this class actions. Now I'm going to add actions to this folder. And this folder is going to be saved as an actions file, which is an ATN file if you're ever looking for it, .atn, and whatever name. You can also rename them and give them a common name and save them to your drive. So the next thing I'm going to do, now I'm going to create some actions, is I'm going to come down here to the plus sign that's right next to the garbage can. You'll see it at the bottom right. And it says, when you hold your mouse over it, it says create new actions. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to, now another little dialog box pops up, and it says create actions. So I'm going to give my action a name. Let's call it 10% darken. Just an overall 10% darken of the image. So if your image is a little too dark, this is an action that will just bring it down a little bit. You'll notice that under the set it says class actions that we created here. We're not going to attach a function key, but I am going to give it a color. And what I do is I have a code in my own head. Red is for sharpening actions, Orange is for contrast actions. Green is for color actions. And since this is going to be an exposure action, I'm going to use yellow. So I'm going to give it the yellow. And then when I hit the button record, it's going to record my keystrokes, right? Real simple. Just like if you haven't used Word or WordPerfect back in the day when you could create your own macros, that's exactly what this is. So when I hit the button record, you're gonna see this little light down here at the bottom of the screen light up red, and it's gonna start recording my keystrokes. Okay, so there it is. Keystroke, the recording button is on. So I'm gonna darken this image. Now I'm gonna do it the way I do stuff. I'm not gonna go up and hunt and peck up here because I know all the shortcut keys. So I'm gonna hit Control L, which brings up the levels dialog box right there. I'm going to here's the middle. By making it 1.1 instead of 1.00, I'm adding 10% darken. Whoops, 10% lighten. So I'm going to have to go to 0.9. There we go. So now this is at 0.9. You saw the image get slightly darker. You'll notice that there's a bigger gap over here on the light side because it did get darker. That's okay. I'm going to hit OK. And there's my action created underneath the 10% darken name. Now I'm going to turn off my recording by hitting this little square button next to it down here on the bottom left. And now I'm done recording the action.
Wow.
Yeah. If I don't need to show all of them, so I'm just going to hit the over arrow. And then I'm going to go back to button mode. And there's my yellow action right there. Now if I hit this, it's going to darken the picture. So watch it. I'll do it a couple times. Darker, 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 darker. See how easy that is? Well, the worst thing that you can do when you have a simple action like this is to go up to the image, find the levels dialog box, which is right there, open it up, then make changes. That takes 5 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever it takes. All I have to do is create an action for it. And now it'll do it every time. And if it's not quite enough, then you hit it twice, right? Pretty simple. Now I'm going to create a couple of other actions. So let's go back to take off button mode. So we're back to this look. I'm going to add another action. This action I'm going to call 100% sharpen, which is a standard amount of sharpening at a radius of 1, R1, sharpen. I mentioned before that the color I use for sharpening things is red. And of course, as I create them, I can always change the order of them by dragging and dropping. So I'm going to hit red. I'm going to hit record. Now this one I am going to have to come up here to filter, come down to sharpen. I'm going to go to smart sharpen. There's the box. Right now it's at 85. I'm going to change that to 100%. At R1, 1.0. The radius on a sharpening just means how far away from the edge the sharpening is going to take effect. And so the bigger the radius, the more the sharpening goes away from the edges. And that's what creates that terrible halo effect. When people over sharpen images, you get that little light color that almost looks like a halo. It means the picture is so out of focus that they had to turn the radius way up. And it's always a sign that it's a poorly done, poorly executed picture. Okay, so 1, I'm going to leave the reducing noise to 0 because I create actions for that. And I'm going to hit, I'm going to hit OK. And now I have a second action. I'm going to come down here and turn it off. Now, one thing that I do is when I'm working in raw pictures, they always open up on the screen as a 16-bit file, a raw file, right? And it's not till the very last thing that you do, which is normally sharpening, that you want to reduce it to an 8-bit file. Because if you're going to save the picture as a JPEG, it can only be an 8-bit file. 8 to the 2 to the 8th power is 256 layers of brightness. When you open up your levels dialog box, you'll notice it says 255 over here on the right. And when you add the 0, it's 256. And so a JPEG has 256 levels of brightness. But a RAW file that you get from shooting in a raw image, when you first open it on the screen, I open mine, and of course you can set it up to open it either in 8-bit color or 14 or 16-bit color. But if you open it up in 16 bits, now you have 65,000 levels of color, not 256. So then you do your processing, and then the very last thing you do is you reduce that to an 8-bit file and then save it as a JPEG. Because literally everything we do for my website, for posting on Facebook, for emailing to friends, almost everything I do is a JPEG. The only thing that I don't use JPEGs for is nothing. And so I use JPEGs for printing, for fine art, for everything. Now that's entirely up to you how you want to do it. You can save these files as a TIFF file, which is a 14-bit or 16-bit file. It's going to be a 60 megabyte file if you do that versus a 10 megabyte JPEG or something close to it. And so I don't save my RAWs. I process the RAWs into high quality JPEGs. I save them as a large file, a 12 size JPEG. And I print pictures up to 60 inches for fine art sales, and they look outstanding. And then I only have to keep one main picture. I don't have to keep multiple main pictures, including the raw file. People will say to me, well, what if you want to process the file, maybe the software will be better in 10 years, and you want to go back and reprocess it. Well, 10 years for me is about 2 million pictures. And I am not going to save all those pictures in order to reprocess them. That's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. And I've already got terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of pictures, and that's without keeping the raw files, just keeping the JPEGs. So it's entirely up to you if you want to keep all that stuff. I don't. I just keep a high quality JPEG, and then if I'm going to do something to it, crop it to a 5x7, do something else, make an 8x10 out of it, then I'll just rename the file -8x10, -8x8x10, -5x7, and that tells me that it's already at 300 dpi at a printable size with that particular crop. And the nice thing is they all sit next to each other in the directory. If you just add a little extension to help you understand what those files are. If you just go in and read, like I do, I used to have a studio, I did thousands of people retouching. And what I would do is I would save the original raw JPEG file, but then I would go in and retouch it because everybody wants skin retouching done, all that kind of thing. And I would simply resave that picture and I would call it that file name -R. And the R told me that that picture was retouched. And they sat right next to each other on the directory. The original picture, then the -R, -8x10, whatever. BW for black and white, S for sepia tone. And so they would all sit next to each other on the directory, and that makes it easy to find the pictures that you process. Okay, let's create another one. Let's create, I don't think, because this isn't a let me go change this picture to a 16-bit file. They're under image and under mode. You'll see down here it says 8 bits with a check mark. I'm going to make it a 16-bit file, just like that. Now that doesn't change it to a 16-bit file. All it does is convert the 8-bit file to 16 bits. And if I open up the levels dialog box, you can't really see it here, but it's all jagged on the edges. And that jagged edge is telling you that it's filling in colors, you know, just to do it. But I want to create an action to downsize it from the raw size 16-bit file to a JPEG, so I can save it as save it to an 8-bit file and save it as a JPEG. So again, I'm going to add a picture. I'm going to add a command. I'm going to call it create 8-bit size. I gave these gray because I don't really use them. I actually add the 8-bit to a second command in my sharpen, so it'll do them both because you only sharpen once, generally speaking. So I'm going to record it. I'm going to come up here to image, go to mode. I'm going to come down here and click 8 bits. And you'll notice right here on the picture, it says 16 bits. But I'm going to change it to 8 bits. And now you see this popped up underneath the name. convert mode, and now I can turn off the recording, and now I have an 8-bit file. And again, as I go back to button mode, you'll see that they're all in different colors. But there's a whole string of, and what this does is it allows you to work quickly. The whole point of Actions is when I open that file from ACR, Adobe Camera Raw, the raw file, because I'll make all, just like in Lightroom, you make all your corrections, right? You open up the file onto your screen, at least in Photoshop, that's how it works. And all I have to do is look at the picture and click a few buttons and I'm done. File save, and I'm done. I'm not sitting up here hunting and pecking on the menus, trying to think about what I need to do. And so by creating these actions, you speed up your workflow tremendously. And one of the common things that I do, you know, these files, if you look up here at the name of the picture, it says RGB/8, red, green, blue /8. It's a red, green, blue file. All digital files are red, green, blue files, unless you create a CMYK file. What that means is that the subtractive colors, cyan, magenta, and yellow, are always the problem colors. Those are the colors that seep into the picture that mess up the color balance in a picture. And so what I'm going to do is create some actions. Let's create a layer again so I don't mess up my original picture. And let's go create some of those actions to take away. So this one is going to be minus 10% magenta, a common color that you see in shadow areas of pictures that's not there. It shouldn't be there, right? Magenta is not a normal color unless you're in a really strange environment. So the color ones that I do are green. So I'm going to select green as my color. I'm going to record. I'm going to pull up hue and saturation, which is Control U. I'm going to select under master, which is all the colors. I'm going to select magenta. I'm going to take the saturation and I'm going to put -10. I'm going to hit OK. I'm done. That's it. I'm going to turn this off. Close that. Now let's go make another one. This one is going to be -10% cyan. Another color that you see in out of focus areas. Again, it's going to be green, -10 cyan, record, pull up hue and saturation, go to cyan, put in -10, hit OK, turn it off. And now I've got another one. And one more I'll create real quick is -10% yellow. Again, it's in a green. And then I can keep these ones that way when my eye goes to the actions, I know that the red are the sharpening actions. I know that they're all color coordinated. And I go right to them and select the right one. I'm not hunting and pecking for those. So now I'm going to open up hue and saturation. I'm going to select yellow, -10. Hit OK. Okay, so those are subtract. I'm going to turn it off. Turn off the recording. Okay, so those are some of the subtractive colors. I don't know if this has affected my picture a whole lot. A little bit. I can tell a little bit. This is an important action. And this is one that you're going to want to write down because it's a more complex action. When we do color saturation, you don't come up here to hue and saturation and just using master, where it's all the colors, saturate the colors like that, right? You don't do that. Why don't you do that? Because it also saturates cyan, magenta, and yellow. Those are subtractive colors. The picture, you don't want to add those colors. So let's just cut that back to 0. So you want to create an action that only saturates red, green, blue. So let's do that. So we're going to create I'm just going to call this, and I do this in steps. So I have one that's called 8% color boost. And that's just 8%. I can always hit it twice if I need to, but it also is going to be green. Record. Okay, now this one's trickier You have to come up here to image, and you have to get the color mixer, which is right, or channel mixer, excuse me. Channels are color, by the way, in Photoshop. When you see the word channel, you can just replace the word color with it. So I'm going to open up the channel mixer. Here it is. So I'm going to go to the red channel, which is it's out right now, and I'm going to bump it up 8%, which is 108. But to do that, these have to come out to 0 on each color. So now under green, I'm going to put -4. Under blue, I'm going to put -4. And now that red comes out to 100%, doesn't it? Now I'm going to go up and select. You notice you can only select red, green, and blue. Now I'm going to go to the green channel. I'm going to put 108. I'm going to put -4 for the red. And I'm going to do these to all 3 of the channels. Now I'm going to go to the blue. I'm going to put 108. And on the red is going to be -4. See, this is something you don't want to do because it takes time. So you create an action to do it quickly. Okay, I'm done. So I'm going to hit OK. And now I've created my boost. Now let's just turn this off. Close this. Let's come up here. I tell you what, let's put the color boost at the top of these color ones, because it's going to be the one you use the most. And let's go to button mode. So there they are. They're the green ones I've created so far. Now, if I sit here and play with this color boost, now watch the color. All I have to do is hit it once or twice, and see, that's a dramatic change. Without the magenta, without the too much yellow, and without the, even though I'm seeing a lot of cyan up here, that's a product of the blue. Okay. Hey, tell me if everybody's following me on this creating action stuff. How are you all doing? Anybody with a question?
It's good. I have a question. Not is vibrance the same thing if you as saturation in terms of increasing
vibrance?
Cyan, CMYK.
Vibrance is different than color saturation, because in color saturation we're using the saturation tool. Vibrance is how deep in that color it goes. Okay, how deep. Usually when you use the vibrance slider, it only allows you to go to a certain point on that color, and then that it's considered 100% saturated, and you can't increase your vibrance above that. And so you can create an action for vibrance. I don't, because vibrance is one of the controls in Adobe Camera Raw. So that's something I select when I'm processing out the raw files, right? I select vibrance then. And if the picture is really undersaturated, you know, on an overcast day, you can get undersaturation and things like that. Then I'll go in and add a little saturation, so maybe I don't have to do this. But remember, you can color boost or do them. You can do these more than once. And so it's better to have a little bit, like 8%, 10%, and do it twice than it is to do have one big 20% color boost. And oh no, that's too much. Then it's extremely difficult to control how much of the color that you're doing. So anyway, there's those actions and how you create them. And by color coding them, it's much, much easier. Now let me show you some other tricks to selecting actions that can be important to you. So let's get out of button mode, go back to this mode so we can create a layer. Another important action is not sharpening 100 at R1. You know, when you put a picture up, like right now, this picture shows up here, if you look in the corner, it says 25%. It also says 25% right here on the navigator, because this is a 300 DPI image, right? And my screen is only at 72, right? So if I blow this up to 100%, I mean, haven't we all got an email where we had to scroll through the picture in an email? I mean, normally we all have gotten emails like that. So what we do when we want to put a picture online, we want to reduce it to 72 DPI, because that's 97% of every monitor that's going to be looking at your Facebook picture or looking at your email where you've attached a picture. So let's do that. Let's create that action. So we're going to call this reduce to 72 DPI. And since this is a size action, again, it's not one of my normal actions, I give it a violet color. I hit record. Now all I have to do is come up here to the title bar of the picture and right click on it. Go to image size, change the 372, and you'll notice that all the widths and heights all change as well because I'm reducing it. Now you can look at how much smaller it's going to be by changing it from pixels to inches. You notice that, see, now it's 16 by 10. Before it was what, 40, it was about 60 inches wide. So I'm going to reduce it to 72. I'm going to hit OK. And you watch, my picture is going to get 1/4 this size. There it is. Why did it go? Because it was at 25% before, and it's still at 25%. But now if I bump it up to 100%, it's only that big, right? So that's important. So I'm going to turn off my recording, and now I can reduce an image. Now the thing about this is you can't just save it, because if you save it, Control S, it overwrites the original file, and this becomes an unprintable picture beyond about a 4:6. It becomes unprintable at 72 dpi. So when you go to save it, File, Save As, and you notice that my Save As is in red. I don't know if you can see that on the left side here, but it's in red because I don't want to accidentally go to save. You never save anything in Photoshop. You always save as. And so if I pull up Save As, see, it shows it as a Photoshop file initially, but I can go select JPEG, and I can just put, like, what I usually do, and the code I use is web, W-E-B for web. And that just tells me that it's at 72 dpi. It doesn't overwrite the original picture. So if I hit save, it asks me the size. And of course, when you're emailing pictures or on Facebook, you don't want to send them at the maximum size. So I send them at 8. 8 is the size JPEG that I put on Facebook or Instagram or as an attachment to an email. And I save it. Now, if I go back to this picture and I hit Save As again, and again, I go to JPEG. See, there it is there's the original picture right here, 17 megabytes. And here's my corrected 72 dpi web size file at a size 8, and it's only 510 kilobytes. So it's very small, very quick, downloads very quickly, and that's the correct way to put pictures online, right? You don't ever give people the full-size version because then they've got a copy of your full printable picture. Does that make sense to everybody? So, and if you do accidentally save anything and you overwrite it, before you close the picture and you realize what you've done, you just hit Control-Z, and now I'm back to the original size of the picture. And now I save it again, overwrite that mistake, change it back to 72, and then Save As. And you guys all know how you can color code your file menus and stuff? You guys all know how to do that? By a nod of heads. No. Okay. You come up here to Edit, and you'll notice at the bottom of the Edit menu, it says Menus. See that? Click on Menus, and a screen comes up. And if I go to the File menu, the first little arrow, hit it so it goes to a down arrow, and I click on Save As, you'll see that there it is. It's in red. And you can attach a color to the important ones that you always want to use. Now, Save As is the most important one in the File menu. So that should be the only one that's red. So you can select red, hit OK. Now, if you're going to make these kinds of changes to your menus, you have to save them. And that means saving the workspace. Do all of you know how to save a workspace? Okay. No. Okay, well, let me show you. So I didn't make any changes there. All you have to do to save a workspace, like I like how my tools are laid out on the right side because I'm right-handed, and having the tools on the right side is ergonomically correct for me. So layers, channels, luminosity masks are here. Navigator, histogram are up here. Here's my middle menu of just the buttons of the toolbar. And these are the repeat ones that I go to. Like if you want to back up a keystroke, you can back up a keystroke by using this. And all of these ones right here are also found here under Window. You just open them up, minimize them, and then drag them over here, and they'll link to each other. And then I have my actions. So what I do is you come up here to the Window menu, and you'll notice that the very second one down from the top is Workspace. Go out to the right, and you'll see it says Brent's Workspace. Well, I can always give it a new workspace name. So once you've done color coding your keys, your things, and creating your actions, laying out your workspace the way you want it, you give it a name. And here it is. Set a new workspace. We'll call it Class Workspace. And you click these little boxes here so it saves your toolbars, your menus, and your keyboard shortcuts. Okay? And you just save it. That's it. The next time you open Photoshop, it's going to open exactly the same way, with all of your things exactly where you want them, laid out the way you want them. And if it ever isn't, like, let me screw it up here for a second. Let's go to like I'm doing graphics and web design. See, it took away those two. See, it put these up instead. So all I have to do now to go back to my workspace is go back up here to Window, go to Workspace, and select Brent's Workspace, and put them all back for me. Isn't that slick? So you can lay out your screen exactly the way you want your tools and your palettes and everything to be. And that's important because it speeds up your workflow. It speeds up your workflow. Now let's do a couple things that are a little bit different, just to show you that you don't have to do just one action. You can link 2 or 3 things together and accomplish something. So let's change this file back to a 16-bit file, which is how it comes when you should open them in Camera Raw, because you always want to process with 16-bit color, not 8-bit color. Okay, so let's create another action. Let's get out of button mode. Let's go back. There we go. Uncheck that. Let's create a new action. This action is going to be also 100% R1 sharpen, but I'll put a little -1 by it. I'll put a -8 by it to show you that we're going to convert the picture to an 8-bit file. And I'll just put 8 bits there so you guys understand. And I'm going to go back to red because that's the color I use for sharpening. And I'm going to record. Okay. So I'm going to open up the filter. I'm going to go to the sharpen menu. It's already going to be at 100 in R1, right? Because that's what I did the last time. 100 in R1. I'm going to hit OK. There it is. But now I'm going to go up here to mode, image mode, and I'm going to select 8 bits. And now you notice that it's put 2 items underneath that. So now when I sharpen the picture, which should always be last, sharpening is always last in your image processing workflow. Now it's going to do both things. It's going to sharpen it. It's going to reduce it to 8 bits. I'm going to turn off the recording. Go back to this menu. See, right now it says, let's go back to 16 bits, just so I can show you. Okay, there it is. Now when I hit 100% sharpen at R1, which is kind of considered your standard digital sharpening, a lot of the newer cameras, if your digital camera is 3 years old or not that old, 0 to 3, then the standard amount of sharpening is 140 at R1. Okay, so I'm going to hit this sharpen button, and you'll see now that it went right up to 8 bits. So it did 2 things. It sharpened it and it reduced it to 8 bits. So I can create complex actions just by doing one thing after another and then stopping the recording. And it'll do that exact set of steps every single time when you make an action. See, now what I can do is I can go up here to mud mode. I can take this original one, this one right here, and I can just drag it down and delete it in the garbage can. And I can drag this one up to the top. And now my good sharpen with the reduction in bit depth is right there. So I can drag them and drop them any way I want. Is everybody following me? Making a multiple step. Now there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do now that you understand that you can do multiple steps. So let's do something. You guys have all seen my pictures, right? Let's not save that. I'm going to go open mine. So let me close this set of actions. Now I'm going to go open my actions, load actions. My actions are found on the C drive, or maybe it's the E drive. And there they are. See, Brent's actions right there. It's an ATN file. And I named it. You can go in and rename your actions. But I'm going to open my actions, load. There they all are again. Just that easy. By closing them out, I didn't get rid of them. I just created a new action set. So if I want to go here to replace actions or to rename actions, see, I haven't made any changes in these actions, so the save action is grayed out. But if I went in and made any changes, the save action would light up and I could give it a new name. You know, Karen's actions, Richard's actions, Susie's actions, something like that. Okay, so let's make it more complex. Let's look at one. So I'm going to push this one right up here that says Open Template H, which is horizontal template. These are the ones that you see me post on Facebook or in my newsletters. And it's a file that's already been created. There it is. There's my action. And this action creates this white border around my picture. It adds my Brent Paul photography, puts in my stuff. The only thing that I need to do now is take this picture, and I don't know if you guys know how to do this, but if you want to drag one picture into another picture, all you do is you light this picture up so that it shows its layer right here, and then you drag it and drop it into this picture, just like that. Now you'll notice that it's not showing me the white edges, and that's because the picture's out of order. See, here's all my edging and stuff. So I just have to drag this layer below these other layers, and there it is. And now I just need to change this. This was, go to text. This was on the Colorado, now it's wrong size too, Colorado Fall Safari. This particular picture is McLean Pass. Now the picture's too big right now, so I'm going to Control T, which is transform. And you notice that I'm going to go down here and select my picture, Control T, and there's my picture frame. There's the original picture way up here. So I'm just going to drag the corners in until it's the side, and I can crop it this way as well. So the picture is framed inside about the way I want it. Hit OK, and then there's my final picture right there. But you see all these layers. Well, these other ones are old pictures that I was doing. But everything from the picture up, here's a layer, effects on this, another layer. So you can create these multiple layered files and by using actions. It's just not that tough. So let's close this and let's do one ourselves. So here's this picture. Okay, let's zoom in on it a little bit. And I hope you guys all use a mouse. I'm holding up my mouse that has a wheel in the middle so that you can zoom in and out just by using the wheel. You don't have to go to controls and you don't have to go to the navigator. You should have a mouse with a wheel in the middle. And if you do and it doesn't do that, you just need to come up here to edit, come down here to preferences, and go set your mouse, which is in here somewhere. I think it might be under performance, or it might be under workspace. But anyway, you go set your mouse so the middle wheel does your zooming for you. Okay, so let's create an action. Let's get out of button mode. Let's go down here to the bottom. And we're just going to call this, let's see, block out white. We'll give it a color just because I don't even know what it's going to be. We'll call it gray. Record. So the first thing we need to do to make a block out is to just create an empty layer that has nothing in it. Not a copy layer, which is Control J, just an empty layer. So we come up here to Layer, go to New, and we just go to New Layer. Doesn't matter what name it, give it. And there it is. You'll see on my Layers palette now I have a blank I have a blank layer. Now I'm going to take the paint bucket, and I like to use white. So I'm going to make sure that white is my main color. And I'm working on my blank layer, and now it's all white. I just painted the layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my marquee tool, and I'm going to keep an area about, it doesn't have to be exact, but I want to cut out an area about like that. Now if you wanted to do something cool, you could make it more arty like that, and then have big scripty name on the bottom. Let's do that. So I'm going to make it about that big, and then I'm going to hit the backspace button. And the backspace button erases it. Everything inside that marquee, right? So now I can hit Control D, which is deselect. All right. Well, now I have this nice frame around my picture, don't I? So now I can do a text layer. Now remember, oh, I forgot to record this. I thought I was recording this. Let's do it again. Oh, it is recording. I don't know if I can undo that. Oh yeah, I can. Okay. So I am recording down here. All right, so let's go pick the text tool. And we're just going to start a line of text right here. We're going to say, oh, it's white. Let's not select white as our color, because then we can't see it. Let's go up here to our color code. Let's pick red because we'll be able to see it better. Oops. Oh, let's tell you what, let's do this. Apparently this is going to be more difficult than I thought. See, unfortunately, oh, here we go. It's right here. Pick red. Now you'll see red. Why didn't red? Okay. Now we have red text. Print all photography. Now it's not big enough, so let's make it bigger. It's my toolbar is being blocked right here a little bit by the share screen sign. Let's make it 60. Okay, that's better. Not big enough. Closer though. Let's make it 80. Okay. Now let's go move this over, and I'm going to pick a font that's scripted. It's a little scriptier, a little more fun to use for your signature. Oh, that's too much. Okay, Rage Italics, let's do that. Now let's make it bigger still, 120. Excellent. Now we're getting somewhere. So there's my script, just like that. Now I can turn this off. Now it's got a bunch of things in here that I deleted, and then I brought them back, but you can see that all these have been added to this text layer. So let's just see if it works. Let's get rid of these things, not the picture, but the layer. Now if it doesn't work, it's my fault. It should work. All right, let's go back to run this action. Now if you want to run it from not in the button mode, you have to select it like that, and then you have to hit the run button. Well, I put the text up, but it didn't put the block text because I accidentally deleted it. But you can see how you can put multiple, the point is you can see how to put multiple things into the picture, into an action, and have it do a bunch of things for you. That didn't work too well because I ended up having to delete it, so it's not sure what the heck I did. But I want to show you some of these actions because you might want to make notes about ones to create for yourself. So I've got these 5 blue ones are the main exposure actions. 10% darken, which we did. 10% lighten. 6% fill shadow. I'm telling you what, that's an important one. Let me go select a picture, especially in like wildlife photography. Let me go, let's get out of this. Let's go pick a crappy new picture. See if I've got any. Let's see. I don't think I got any good pictures on this. Oh yeah. Okay, so here's a raw file. So I'm going to drag and open my raw file. And I could do 40 at a time if I wanted. I'm going to open the raw file. ACR is going to pop open here. There it is. First thing you do if you're not used to this is you just come down here to optics and you set your lens quality. So remove chromatic aberrations. You're going to set your profile. See, it put in my lens, Nikon 500mm lens automatically. Then I'm going to come back up here to basic. You can see the picture. See the histogram is dark. It's got nothing over here on the light side. This is the dark side. This is the light side. There's nothing there. That's why the picture looks too dark. So as I drag my exposure button to the right, you'll see the histogram moves along with it. Now it doesn't have to go all the way to the edge like that because you can see that that's burning out. But I could go right about there. And I'm going to leave everything else the way it looks. Add a little color saturation, a little vibrance. And I'm just going to open it. But you notice down here that there's an option bar. You can click on this. And this is where I set it to open in 16 bits right here. Okay, I'm open, and then there's 8, and there's 16. And it's right down here in this selection. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to hit open. And there's my picture. And again, here it is up here, opened in 16 bits. Now, let's look at this elk right here. Kind of a crab. He's got his horns broken. I'm going to make a copy layer, Control J, because you should always make a copy layer. And let's just say this is too dark. The shadow areas are too dark. Well, I could go up here. I'm going to have to move this bar over again. There we go. I could come over here to Image, Adjustments, and come down here to Shadows and Highlights. See this? Shadows and Highlights. And you see that it had 35% shadows. It opened it up. Well, that's too much. So my action is 6% fill shadow. I have one action for 6%, one action for 10%. Because I just want to do it a little bit, but I don't want to go up here and do keystrokes. I just want to push the button. Fill shadow. Okay, that's not quite enough. Fill shadow again. I like that right there. And then the other one is fill shadow 10%. Probably the one I use the most, though, is darken highlights. How many times do you have burned out edges or burned out highlights in pictures? All the time. So darken highlights, again, you come up here, adjustments, shadows and highlights are right there. Now, if I go the other way, get rid of the shadows, and I just do the highlights, now you'll see that all the yellows darken. All the highlights in the picture all darken. Well, that's too much. So again, my is just 6%, and I can sit here and hit my action button to darken those highlights once or twice, and you'll see them get darker there. Boom, I like that. And now I'm done. Control S and save it. I have to sharpen it still. So if I hit my action, you'll see the 16 turn to an 8. And now I'm just going to hit Control S, and it comes up. The first one of every one you do is always Photoshop. You just have to select JPEG, and then every picture after this, you can save it as a JPEG automatically without having to select JPEG. but that's what these actions are for. So those are the 4 exposure actions. Then I have contrast. Okay, contrast is a big one, because contrast makes the lights lighter, the darks darker. Now this is another important one. One thing that I do, let's get rid of this picture. We're not going to save it. Let's go pick an easier picture. Is when you're processing your pictures, you never process the backgrounds on wildlife images, right? You never do that. That's a big no-no. So let's go pick a great gray owl picture. Just drag it over here and open it. Now it's a JPEG because I've already done it once, but I haven't done it. See, I only do fine processing on images that I know I'm going to send to a magazine or put on my website or something like that. So I'm just going to come up here to filter and select, excuse me, select and select the subject. And it's going to get a good chunk of that owl, if not all of it. There, and I lost it right there. So I'm going to go pick the quick selection tool here. I'm going to drag it through the rest of my owl. So it selects my owl. I'm going to make sure that it hasn't picked some big part of the background. And you can see that the owl is pretty much selected. That's what you sharpen. You don't sharpen this out of focus area, because if you do, it sharpens the noise. It increases the noise in the picture. So you can see that here, I tell you what, let's make a copy of my layer here. Great. So you can see that the eye looks a little blurry. So I'm going to do a sharpen, 140 at R1. That's better. I'm going to do 70 at R1 once. And that's probably as good as it's going to get with this picture. It's not a totally sharp picture. Now what I'm going to do, and this is the magic of having actions, is I'm going to inverse the selection. So right now, just the owl is selected. But when I hit inverse selection, which is found up here under select, inverse, you can see it's in red on my menus. Instead of having to do that, I can just hit an action for it. Now the picture is selected, but not the owl. And now if you look up here in the noise, there's not a lot of noise, but there's a little bit. Now I'm going to hit Noiseware, which is the program I use. It's going to apply 45% noise reduction. And if I do it twice, now let me flash that on and off. So I hope you guys can see how different that looks. I mean, there's a lot of difference. So what you do is you do noise reduction only to the background of a wildlife or a person, right? You never do noise reduction to the subject, and you never sharpen the out of focus areas. You only sharpen the subject. That's it. This is a poor example because it's out of focus. Let's see if we can find one that's a little bit better. Well, this one I've already done a bunch of times. So this one, oops. Let's just pull it up. You notice that the colors are better. So I've already gone in and look at the eye on this one. Much sharper, much sharper. But let's say I wanted to do, again, I could select the subject and do the noise out here and do the sharpening in here. So let's go through some more of these actions. So I have a number of different sharpening actions. So if I open up a picture that I'm now, see now this is at 300 DPI. Let's say that I'm going to put this on the web. I'm going to change the image size to 72. You notice it got smaller because it went from 300 to 72. So that's a little more than 4.5 times smaller. But see, now when I zoom in on it, it doesn't look quite as sharp. See, now I can't go beyond 100%, right? Because everybody's going to be looking at the picture at 100%. And I can see that it's not very sharp because by going from 300 to 72, you lose some of the sharpness. So I have an action, a sharpening action, that is 20% at R.8. And what that does is it resharpens an image that's been downsized from 300 to 72. See, I can't sharpen it 100 at R1. it would just pixelate the whole picture, right? So what I have to do is just give it a little smidge of sharpening. So you'll see on my actions here, I have a 20% at R1 Smart Sharpen. And that's just the right amount of sharpen to resharpen your web-sized image. And so what I've done is I've tried to go through and create these things to not, so you don't have to go up and do keystrokes. When you do keystrokes, it slows you down. Now, if you're like most people, let's say you shoot 1,000 pictures in Yellowstone and you whittle them down to your favorite 100. And some people will want to process all of them right away, which is fine. What I do is I select maybe 15 at a time that all look the same. And this is something that people have asked me about. Doesn't have so much to do with actions, but it has to do with workflow. Oops. Like let's say I pick these 3. Whoops. This one and this one and this one. There's 4. I can drag them into my thing. Oh, it's going to open them individually because they're not raw files. I'm sorry. If these were raw files, it would open them in processing. Let's go find those new pictures that haven't been processed yet. Oh, heck. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's pick 2 of these ferruginous hawks. They're kind of far away. Now, again, I can pick 10. I'm going to pick the ones where the exposure is similar. And I'm going to drag them both in. It's going to pop open ACR. There's my 2 pictures on the left-hand side right here. Bob, you waited too long. I'm going to highlight them both. I can hit Control A, and you'll see that they're both highlighted now. Now, again, I'm going to do the usual things. I'm going to go in and select the optics, what lens and camera I'm using. Just like that. I'm going to go up here to the basic, look at the histogram. Now you notice I have some whites there. So I'm going to darken the whites or the highlights right here. You'll see those whites get darker, but I need to brighten the shadows quite a bit. You'll see the histogram moving to the right. I like that. And I've protected the highlights. And I can open them. And it'll just process them both exactly the same way. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because I want to show you an action that I use a lot. So there's 2 pictures. There's 1 picture. Let it process the other one. It's going to open it. And again, they're opening at 16-bit files. So this action right here on my menu, see this? It says save and close. See that right there? Let's go and look at it out of button mode. Here it is right here. You can hit the down arrow. So it plays the sharpening action. It converts it to 8 bits in the second action. The third action saves it. The 4th action closes it. So now it always saves it back to the directory that you got it out of. So I'm going to look and see where that is. Let me just drag this bigger. Okay, so we don't want that. So let's do this. Let's get rid of this action. And I'm gonna sharpen this first one. So I'm gonna run this 100 at R1. Then I'm gonna come up here to convert mode. I'm gonna hit red. Once that's done. Now I'm gonna hit File, Save As, or Save. Just save here. See it saves it as a JPEG. Save. 12, okay. And see it added the save function here on the action. Now when I run the next action, turn it off. Go back to button mode. See, now there's only 1 picture open. Oh, there's still 2. Let's close it. Now when I hit this action, it's going to sharpen it, convert it to 8 bits, save it, and then close it so I can move on to the next picture. So, if I had 40 pictures on here all open, and they all are similar exposured, I can just do one after another, just like this. Now watch, it's sharpening it. You see it says sharpen right now. And these are big files, so it's going to take a second. Then it's going to save it. Then it's going to close it. Now it doesn't, only the first one takes very long, and there I'm done. So what I'll do is I'll take 20 at a time that are all similar, open them all up from ACR onto the screen, and then I'll make sure I save it to the right file, and then I'll just sit, and if the picture looks good, but I don't want to do fine detail, I don't want to take bubblegum wrappers out of it, I'm not trying to take people's acne off their face, I'll just sit there and go click, 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 and I'll go right through all 40 of those in about a minute. And it'll just go boom, 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 boom. And sharpen them, save them, close them. Sharpen it, save it, close it. Every time I hit that action, and I'm done. I go delete the raw files, as long as I got a good JPEG, and I'm good. Does anybody have any questions for me about how much these actions can help you, or am I not clear in something about these actions?
You're doing great. But my question is, when you have multiple images open like that and you want to apply one action, is there a way to select all of the images so you would just click the action once?
There is not, because I have tried to do that. Okay. So there's not an action that will do individual pictures. You have to do each individual picture.
You have to do
action. It's only good on one picture. So if I opened up 30 pictures and I thought the hawk was a little burned up, still the white on the chest was a little burned out, I would hit the darken highlight 6% and then hit the save as, right? The save and close. Hit it, save and close, hit it, save and close. And so I can use the actions to do that intermediate little tweaking of the processing before I save it and close it. But this is how you do pictures in seconds,
right,
instead of minutes. And I'll tell you, the only pictures you want to do fine detailed processing for are the ones that you want to put online or on your website. Then you're going to go in and get rid of the garbage and dust spots and all that kind of thing. You're going to get rid of all those kinds of things. So. Well, all righty. Our class time is up. I hope you guys all got something out of the class. I hope you took notes. What Photoshop, area of Photoshop would you all like to see? Do you have any suggestions for me for the next one? The next one in February is on Bobcat photography tactics. So that'll be a fun one because I'm a Bobcat photographer. And so I'm going to do tactics. It's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to be looking at pictures and I'm going to be explaining techniques and tactics in getting those pictures. But if you have a particular kind of thing that you're really struggling with, the basic one I'm going to send to Susie. I'm going to send her that JPEG processing or image processing. Some of the pictures are going to look different because the interface has changed over time, but all the actions are still the same. All the controls, control.
Thank you.
What was that?
I just said thank you. That'd be great.
Great. Does anybody else want a copy of that? That image processing PDF file. I'll send it to you for free if you want one.
How can I resist an offer like that? Sure.
Karen, you want it? Thumbs up, Karen. Okay, I'll send it to all three of you then. All right, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good
you very much.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet.